Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, broadcasting live every Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central from Panama City Beach, Florida, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining me on my weekly broadcast. Every week, I'll feature some of the best instructors, coaches, authors, and entrepreneurs in the golf business today. I begin with a great discussion on Coach's Corner, followed by an insightful interview with my special guest. So let's get started by introducing tonight's Coach's Corner panel. All right, thank you everybody for joining me here live on Golf Talk Live. It's good to be back on the air. As those of you that might have tuned in to the Tuesday show, Women of Golf, know that I was on vacation last week in California and didn't do either one of the shows. So this is my first Golf Talk Live back after vacation, and I'm very, very excited to be here. Got a great group, a couple of guys on the Coach's Corner panel, and I'll bring them out here in just a minute. And then a little bit later on the show, I'm going to actually have another guy that's pretty regular on the Coach's Corner panel, and his partner, if you will, as my special guest. Of course, I'm talking about John Decker, who's a PGA instructor, and Dr. Angelica Napolitano, who is a physiotherapist, if you will. And they're hosting a podcast of their own called Golf Swing RX Podcast, The Prescription for Your Game, which I was a guest just a couple of weeks ago on their show and had a lot of fun, good time in that. They're going to be coming on the second half. We're going to talk about that. But first, let me just say a special thank you to the sponsor, golfswing.com, the Coach's Corner panel segment here on Golf Talk Live. And here's just a little bit about golfswing.com. With their cutting-edge technology, they have teamed up alongside some of the best instructors, coaches, and swing gurus, if you will, in the business. Together, they have created one of the best video teaching and training online platforms in golf. So if you're ready to break 100, 90, 80, or even 70, then join their online video academy and learn from some of the best. In addition to sponsoring the Coach's Corner segment, each week I will post a different golf instructional video tip featuring one of their top instructors. So join golfswing.com today and watch, practice, and improve your game. And don't forget to enter promo code GolfTalkLive to receive 50% off the subscription price. And I'll have a little bit of a audio clip a little bit later on in the show giving you a little more specifics about golfswing.com. Again, thanks everybody for joining me. I'm going to bring out the Coach's Corner panel here in just a minute. Let me just introduce them individually, and then I'll bring them out as a group. First up, of course, is Clint Wright. He's a 30-plus year member of the PGA, partner at TGM Golf, and a big proponent of the R3 approach. One of the best covering the short game today, in my opinion, and he's among my favorite guest panelists here on Coach's Corner. Also, another favorite is Chuck Evans. He's a Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher, as well as a Golf Digest Top teacher in America. He's also a Top 50 Growth of the Game teacher and Director of Instruction at Apache Creek Golf Club in Apache Junction, Arizona, and also the owner of Chuck Evans Golf. So, guys, welcome back to the Coach's Corner panel here on Golf Talk Live.
Good to be with you, Ted.
Good to be here, Ted. Thanks.
All right, appreciate it, and always looking forward to doing these segments here on the show. It's one of my favorite parts. Obviously, I enjoy interviewing the guests as well, but I always enjoy the Coach's Corner panel. We always have some interesting discussions. So, guys, we're going to talk about today, I thought what we would talk about this evening is about a champion golfer, if you will. And I'm talking, of course, a high-caliber golfer. And some of the ways that we might identify a champion and how we can help them to even further reach their potential. So first question I guess I want to ask both of you. Now, I've talked about this before on the show, but I want to get into a little bit more specific in some areas with the two of you. And I'm going to start, if you don't mind, Chuck, with you, and just to get your idea in your mind, what qualifies as a champion?
Well, I think if you're a champion, you've won a number of events. Now, if you're an elite player, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've reached that threshold yet, but you're on the cusp of it. But a champion, in my mind, is a player that has won basically at every level, whether it's junior golf, high school golf, college, mini tours, PGA Tour. And, you know, you could be a champion golfer and just be a club member. You've won your club championship, 8, 9 times, whatever it is. I mean, I had my best friend actually, who passed 3 years ago. Every club that they went to, he was the men's club champion every single year. And then once he turned, I think it was 60, he was not only men's club, but he was the senior men's club champion. So in my mind, that made him a championship golfer. And the same can be said for any number of the women. I forget who it was. I just reading it today. Won the senior women USPGA, an amateur event, or senior women USGA event. So they're a champion as well. But you don't have to be a professional to be a champion, but you do have to achieve success as a player, whether it be from the amateur side or from the professional side.
Right. Well said. Clint, I think you probably concur a lot with what Chuck just said. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, not really. I was just saying I couldn't have said it much better. I think that obviously to be a champion you have to have won, and like you said, I mean, at any level. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you see the local Monday morning junior clinics and camps have champions, So
right.
No, I can't add a whole lot to what he said.
All right, well, I'm going to jump to you anyways, Clint, for this next thing.
Sure.
I think, though, in addition to winning events, I think there's some other key factors that we might look for when looking for a champion, if you will. I mean, obviously, winning events is a telltale sign, but there's some other things that sort of exude, if you will, from that champion type mentality, and one of them is an individual that easily adapts to change. In other words, there may be changes that are necessary, not necessarily in their swing, but in their approach to the game, and they have to have a willingness to be able to do that. And a lot of folks are not. As we know, as teaching professionals and coaches, a lot of folks out there are not always easily able to make changes in how they handle themselves out in the golf course. So first off, is that important to have an easily adaptable student to work with, or does it not matter at all?
Well, I think it depends on where you're picking the student up from. If you got a person that has been successful, winning, playing well in tournaments and stuff, and they come to you to refine what they're doing, and maybe they're just getting close to winning, they're a couple of shots out or whatever, then you have to try to refine what they do, because what their approach, their routine, their mental preparedness is getting them close, but could possibly, just need some refinement to move them on to that next level. Now, if you're taking a player that is becoming, let's say, a mid to late teenager that's showing promise as being, athletically available to be a good golfer, then you have to teach them that routine and how important the emotional and mental approach, particularly I think emotional approach, to how they're going to prepare themselves. I think if you really boil down to the Nicklaus's legacy, is not necessarily that he was a better ball striker, but he was better at controlling his emotions. And many people have said this, at controlling his emotions at the point of winning major championships. And he worked on the ability to do that. And I think that's one of the things that is kind of driving the mental coaches or emotional coaches, all the sports psychologists that come. When I was a kid, nobody knew what a sports psychologist was. I mean, you just got out there and you figured out how to do it, But there comes a point to where that's very helpful. And I think as a golf instructor, it's important for us to recognize that maybe we need that kind of help to help these students. We can't be all things to all people. So,
right.
a little bit of a specializing when you get a player. I think from an instructor standpoint, it's incumbent on us to recognize is that we can't help them there, and we have to get somebody involved that can, to move them onto that more of a stable emotional approach in those special events. I mean, you think about what you want to talk about as champions. We remember who wins the majors, kind of who won the XYZ tournament. They're champions, but, in those special events, it's different, and we all know that. So you have to prepare for those special events.
Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Right. Well said, too. FYI, my father was my psychic guru, if you will, and he said these words. I still hear them today. It's, if you want to be a better player, get off the couch and get out and practice. So,
get off the couch, son. Get off the couch.
Yeah, exactly. Get off the couch, turn the TV off, and get out and practice.
Yeah. There you go.
Chuck, Chuck, I want to talk about, again, we're staying on this theme of champions, and again, it doesn't really matter what level, but there are some key factors that I've identified, and I'm sure there's others, but these are just a few that we're going to talk about tonight. And, we look at our amateur players, you might have somebody that's pretty good at their short game, or maybe they're pretty good off the tee, but they don't tend to be well-rounded all the way around in every aspect of the game. But that's something that we do see in our champions. They tend to be pretty good at all parts of their game, some obviously better than others, and there are some parts of their game that, again, might be their strongest. But generally, if you look at most of the champions, now Clint just mentioned, Nicklaus was not necessarily the best ball striker in the world, but he was a very good ball striker in many ways. But he had a good mental prowess, if you will, out in the golf course. So how do we sort of help learning from the champions that we see out there and how they're able to encompass every part of their game and refine it? How can we help our amateur golfers to sort of achieve that as well?
Well, I think it all goes back to specialities like we were talking about, to specialists. I mean, my players, the ones that are right on the cusp, if they struggle mentally, I set them up with Dr. Brett McCabe up in Birmingham, Alabama. If they are struggling with their putting, I send them to Phil Kenyon, whether in the UK or at Sea Island. But for your average player, let's say they're not at the championship level or even the elite level, they're a 15 handicapper. Some people will have the means to be able to see the people I just talked about, and others won't. And I think that's part of working with the player. You ask them, and you do this a lot on course is how I do it. I get them out on course and I ask them what their thought process is on every single shot. So if you've got let's say you have a dog leg left and you can see the 150 stake, and you know that the hole's going to go to the left, and you ask somebody, what is your thought process on hitting this tee shot? Well, I just want to hit it out in the middle somewhere. Okay, well, out in the middle somewhere doesn't work because that's where the 150 is in the middle. I'll get them to try to hit it left of the 150 versus right because there's a 40-yard difference in your approach shot. And then we'll talk about shots to the green. What's your thought process on this? I can't tell you how many juniors I've had who thought the only wedge shot in the game was a lob shot. Well, you know what? There's a lot more shots than just a lob shot. How about let's take a flighted wedge, right, or a three-quarter wedge, or change up the wedges. But you have to kind of to see what they're thinking, and the only way you're going to know what they're thinking is to ask them questions. If you look at great players, Lee Trevino was one of the best ball strikers ever, but he never won an Augusta because his ball flight didn't fit Augusta's greens. You don't win an Augusta as a low ball striker. You win at Augusta as a high ball striker.
Right.
So you have to look at the players' means and again, get in their thought process, and it does take some time with them because they're not used to thinking this process out. I went out with a playing lesson the other day, and I said, well, how far do you – he's looking at his Garmin, and he says, well, this is a 3-iron. I go, oh, how do you know it's a 3-iron? I go,
right.
Well, it just tells me. And I said, well, how far do you hit your clubs? He goes, I don't know. I go, well, that's the first thing you need to know is how far do you hit your clubs, plus or minus 2 to 5 yards, right? So we come up on this par 5. His third shot is at 71 to the hole, and he's got some room in the back. And I said, and so he hits his shot, and I said, you hit that pretty solid? He goes, yeah, it was really solid. So we go up to the green. I said, now find your pitch mark. He goes, well, here it is. I said, now pace it off to the hole. So it's 4 paces above the hole. I said, all right, so you hit that shot 75 yards. Use that as a base now and kind of go around that. Always look for your pitch mark for what your yardage says. If it says 170 or whatever it is, find your pitch mark, then pace the distance to the hole, either if it's short or long, not side to side, but short or long. And that's going to give you a proximity. I mean, that's the way the best players in the world do it. Brooks Koepka said it easy. He says, you've got a club that's too short and one that's too long. Find the middle one. Okay, so that's pretty easy to figure out.
Right, exactly. And it goes to the mindset, I think, of today's golfer as well. The difference between the better players and those that are still sort of struggling to find their game is the better players know what they need to do to get the answers to those questions that we are asking them, or certainly should be asking them. And a lot of the amateurs out there, they don't even know where to begin half the time, and they're going through using technology. And again, I'm all for technology in the right place, but again, if you're using that as your guide and not really, putting the efforts of the work in, then you're not going to, yield strong results. And Clint, this goes to really the next point. I know we've talked about this a lot, but the difference between a champion and a sort of everyday run-of-the-mill player is their strong commitment to practice. There's a willingness and even sacrifice to put in the time, if you will, to achieve their goals. Talk a little bit about that. What are we going to need to do as an industry to really make practice something that people are going to want to do willingly and not feeling that it's an obligation, but something that they're willing to do? What can we do to change that mindset? How can we have that conversation with them to say, look, we've told them 1,000 times, but maybe we need to phrase it a little bit differently. What are your thoughts there?
Well, let's refine what you're talking about for a minute and expand it to, I want to see a person give me a commitment, not to practice, as you're speaking of, but I want them to give me a commitment to get better. Let's improve. Okay? Now, there's a lot of areas of improvement. I can improve my knowledge about what I'm attempting to do. I can improve my physical ability to make a better golf swing. So there's more to getting better than just practicing, on the range or chipping and putting. I think it's a component of improvement, okay? And part of what you were just talking about, that person that doesn't know how to get better at that mental approach or the imagination they need. And so there's a level of commitment to improve, like I've said before, that has different levels. So I want them to get where they're eating better. They're probably stretching and exercising. Those are parts of commitment of getting better. Then I think you start boiling down to how much time do you really need to spend on the practice range or the chipping green or the putting green? How much time do you really need to spend there as one component of an improvement plan? And, I'm a firm believer that it's not about massive amounts of time, but getting as much out of your time as you can. So if you start giving it your guy that's working or lady that's working to start thinking about overall improvement with different factors, then they have a plan now. Well, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise today a little bit. I don't have to do a lot of anything, but I need to do a little bit of a lot of things within that component. That's what, not to advertise here, but that's part of the R3 approach. It's not all about just beating balls, as we've talked before. Go to the practice tee with a purpose. What am I going to try to accomplish today? It just wasn't too long ago, and I may have mentioned this before. If I did, I apologize. But I had a young lady working in the shop there where I was at, and she asked me, how did my practice session go? I said, well, my practice sessions always go well. And she looked at me like I was being cocky. I said, no, don't misunderstand. I said, I go out there with a purpose. If it takes me 10 balls to achieve it, I leave. If it takes me 100 shots to achieve it, I stay. So if you go with a purpose of, okay, here's what I want to try to accomplish today based on what I've been reading or what my coach is helping me with, then I'm going to go out and accomplish that, and then I'm going to go on to do something else. And so if you get them believing in improvement that has many more factors than just beating balls on the range, I think you can get them to buy into a more purposeful practice if it's part of an overall program, not just, hey, you need to go to the range and hit a bunch of balls a day to make your swing better. So that's kind of the approach I take to it. It's a program of improvement, not necessarily practice.
Right, and that's an excellent point that you bring up, because really when you look at it from that approach, I think it does open the door to many more possibilities, because you're exactly right. If you just tell the student, okay, you need to go to the range and spend 30 minutes a day, hitting balls or working, chipping or putting around the greens, and that's going to improve your game, there is a whole other area, nutritional issues, physical fitness, and people are already starting to do some of that now. So now if we incorporate that into an improvement plan, then it sounds whole lot better to them and say, okay, you know what, maybe I don't need to spend 20 minutes at the range every day. I can, wheel that back maybe just to a couple times a week instead of every day of the week, or even just once a week. But if I work on areas in other parts or components of my life, eating better, eating healthier, getting out walking and exercising in some fashion, which many people are already starting to do, riding a bike, whatever the case, whatever you enjoy doing, suddenly now it's a lifestyle change as opposed to a practice regimen, because that turns a lot of people off if they think that that's what they've got to do. And again, golf is really not so much a physical game as it is a mental game. And if you put a individual in a situation where you're doing less mental re-educating, if you will, and more physical approach, it can become a turnoff for a lot of people, because again, it's work. Well, I'm already working 40 hours a week now. Now I've got to work an extra, 5 hours to improve my golf game, where maybe that's not necessarily the case or needed, depending on the situation. So that's a great point that you bring up, and I hope that the listeners that are tuning in tonight, really think about that, sort of unpack it a little bit more. And we'll talk about that more again on a future show, because I think that's a great topic really to have. So thank you for that, Clint.
You're welcome.
Chuck, I'm going to checks in the mail.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Chuck, we want to come back. Yeah. Chuck, I want to come back, and I know we've already touched on this a little bit, and we're talking about it now to some degree, but, the mental game, something, too, that the champions, if you will, again, whatever level, tend to have differently than many of our amateurs is the ability to overcome extreme challenges. Lord only knows, we get out on that golf course, and we can get ourselves in some pretty unbelievable challenges out there. But the difference with the better players is they've developed a skill set, if you will, not just the physical side of the game, but the mental side on how to overcome and how to address some of those challenges. So talk about that a little bit, some of the things that you see out there, and really how a high handicap player can handle some of those same challenges that many of the pros are handling.
Well, I'll give you an example, a couple of examples, actually. So, you see a lot of high handicappers just stand on a tee and there's water on the right, and the first thing that goes through their mind is, oh boy, there's water right, don't hit it right. Well, the brain doesn't distinguish do from don't. It remembers the word water. So normally they hit it in the water. Whereas, a championship golfer will acknowledge the fact that there's a potential hazard out there, and they will aim and strike the ball in a manner that will either curve or move sharply away from that hazard. Today in old guys golf, like I was telling you, we play on Thursdays. I'm sitting there with a guy that's got to hit a shot over a bunker, and he's 5 yards short of the bunker. He's got to hit a shot over the bunker to a pin that's right over the bunker. And his first words out of his mouth was, "Oh boy, here we go. I can chunk this in the bunker pretty quick." He got up there, chunked in the bunker. I said, "Well, you programmed yourself to do that." Okay. Championship golfers don't think about that, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're the average golfer and you're stuck in that situation, you can see the bunker's clearly there. Don't hit it at a tucked pin. Hit it 20 feet past, so at least you got a chance to make a putt. So that I see those mistakes every single day out there. People, and that's part of the course management thing. Elite players, championship golfers, manage the golf course. They they manage their game as related to the golf course. If it's a sharp dogleg left, for example, or a left pin placement, and they cut the ball, and they fade it, they're not aiming at short-sided pins necessarily, unless they have a wedge in their hand. If they're an average second swing or approach shot distance on the PGA Tour is around 175 yards, and that seems to be the yardage that gives them the most trouble too. But they will aim a little bit, if they're cutting it, they'll aim a little bit left of the pin, or they might aim exactly at the pin, but they know it's going to cut and be to the right of the pin to give them a chance for a putt. And amateur golfers also, when they're aiming to the green, they will aim at a pin. It doesn't matter if it's the biggest side hill, double, triple bricking putt you can imagine. They're going to aim it at the pin. Where again, elite golfers are aiming for a place. I call it the zero line, and it could be left or right of the hole, but it's on a line that it's the one place. If you're in that quadrant, let's say where the pin is, it's the one place that gives you the straightest putt. Instead of, I'd always rather have a 15-foot straight putt than a 10-foot double breaker. I mean, it's just an easier putt to hit, So, again, by going out with them and finding out what their strengths and tendencies are, and changing how they approach their course management, that's a big help to them mentally. Get those negative thoughts out of there. Recognize that there could be a potential hazard, but you know what? You hit the shot that cannot go to the hazard, all right? And I tell them all the time, if you're somebody that fades the ball, and fades being a gentle word, or so, let's say you're a slicer of the golf ball, you aim at a point. You aim at a point far enough down the left side of the fairway that even if you hit it straight, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're in the left side of the fairway.
Yep.
But they'll aim at the middle of the fairway, and then they'll slice it over into the desert here in the woods up where Clint's at. So.
And that's an excellent point as well, Chuck. Going back to your bunker scenario, you're exactly right. The gentleman that you were playing with today, his first thought is, I'm going to hit it in the bunker. Where your PGA or your LPGA professional, they're thinking about where they want to position that ball for their next shot. They're thinking, if they're potentially looking at an opportunity to put it in a position that's going to give them an uphill straight putt, that's what they're going to do. So they're looking at the end result, and yes, they're cognizant and they're aware of any obstacles that might be away. And that's the difference is, they don't look at it so much, even though it is technically a hazard, they don't look at it as hazard. It's just an obstacle that they have to somehow get around, but they're focusing on a specific target. It's just something that happens to be in their peripheral vision or in their vision, if you will. meaning the bunker. And unfortunately, our average golfer out there, they're not thinking about where they want to land the ball. They're thinking about what do I need to do to not get it into that bunker. So right away they're bringing almost a double negative into the conversation. And really that's something that we need to sort of train. So, Clint, I'm going to bounce this back over to you. We're going to keep on just for a few more minutes. We're going to keep on the mental side of things. Let's talk about some specifics. Clint's given it certainly some examples of situations that we're going to find our golfers faced with in that. But what are some things that we can do to help our champions or our amateur golfers, we're going to call them champions for now, to help strengthen their mind game? What is their mental game, if you will? What are some drills or what are some specific things that you like to do to help them develop some mental strength out in the golf course?
Well, I don't necessarily think of it as mental. I mean, they know where they're at. They know their yardages. They have a mental thing. I work more with a person about their emotional stability, of nervousness and things of that nature, of trying to develop a sense of, it is a results-based game. I mean, I think we fool ourselves that way, don't worry about the results, just do this. I mean, I think that's foolish to think that way. We keep score, so results do matter.
Sure.
And so therefore, if you don't fool yourself into thinking that results don't matter, you have a better chance of maybe managing your way through it. It's simple in theory, but difficult in practice. It's just like the bunker shot y'all were just talking about. The best players in the world, the bunker, it's not even there. It's not. They know it's not going in there because they've got the shot that they need to put the ball in the air and loft it. It's all about how far they're going to hit it. It's not whether they're going to get it over the bunker or not. It's how far do I need to hit this pitch shot to get it close to the hole. The bunker is just not even there. It only affects the type of shot they've got to play, where they can't bump and run it. So in their imagination, they know they can't bump and run it, so they got to use a lofted club. That's the only thing that bunker is good for in their mind. So what I try to do is put people in circumstances like that gentleman that Chuck played with. If I'm giving him a lesson, the next time I see him, we're going to go out on the golf course. I'm going to put you behind this bunker and show you how to hit this shot. Those shots come down to confidence. Have I done this enough times to know that from an emotional standpoint, I'm not going to chili dip this thing trying to jab it up in the air? So the skill level that you have, then know that you're going to be able to hit the trajectory pattern you want. And that's what we're talking about here. It's a trajectory pattern. Am I going to run it on the ground? I'm going to put it up in the air. What have I got to do based on the circumstances between me and where I want the ball to go? So trajectory pattern is important because most of us know that the more trajectory that an average player wants to put on the ball, the more it generally rolls on the ground because they're trying to loft it in the air. So we have to get them to a point to recognize the fact. It's just like when I'm working around the green chipping and putting, I ask a person, why do you use a putter on the putting green? Well, they never know the answer. The answer to that question is because it'll make the ball roll without you having to do anything. Just hit the back of the ball and it's going to roll. And the same thing with a sand wedge. I ask them, well, what is a sand wedge supposed to do? Well, put it in the air. And I said, well, for you to put the ball in the air with this club, what do you have to do? And invariably, well, you got to get the club under the ball. You got to do this. I said, no. I said, all you got to do is hit the back of the ball with the face of this club, and it's going to go in the air. And so, therefore, what we have to do with these folks in these shot patterns of this nature is to put them in the circumstances, get them to emotionally trust the club they've chosen to create the flight pattern. All they've got to do is move it through the space. And if you ever get them convinced of that, they'll be able to put that ball on the green over that bunker because they begin to emotionally trust the club to create the shot pattern it was technically designed to do. And that's the approach I would take. Well, if you got a bag, we got 14 clubs at least in the bag. Some people carry more than that, Yeah. Why don't you just let the club do what it's designed to do? If you want to do something, I get to them, I said, if you want to do something and you have to do, then leave your driver at home and hit a 7-iron off the tee all day and see if you can make it go as far as your driver will go. You can't do it. So that's why we have a driver. So trust your equipment, and that takes a certain level of technique, obviously. It also takes enough times to see it happen that you begin to trust the equipment and your ability to move that equipment through the space to hit the back of the ball where the ball will react to the club design. Then if you trust that, then you can focus all of your attention on how hard do you need to hit it to get it to go where you want to. And that, to my opinion, is why the guy chunked it in the bunker. He didn't trust his equipment to create the job, so therefore he stayed focused so much on technique and trying to get the club to do something, he couldn't focus his attention on how far he needed to hit it. And just chunked it in the bunker.
Yeah, and it goes further. Yeah, it goes further to the point too. I think that a lot of folks out there that are, listening to the show that maybe fall into that category, he's already set himself up. I mean, he had already set himself up initially for failure before he even pulled the club out of the bag. As soon as he saw the shot, he knew he didn't have the confidence level to execute that shot. So he just sort of willy-nilly tried something and hoped that it would, have a good result. And obviously it had the result he anticipated, right?
Yeah, let me add one thing there. It's not confidence. It's trust. There's a difference. I'm confident I'm going to hit the shot one way or the other, but I've got to trust my equipment. It's a trust factor, not confidence. You have to be able to trust something before you can have confidence in it. We Mike Lawrence and a lot of us, we talk about this all the time, whether it's confidence, trust, or faith, and so I don't see it as a confidence issue. You have to trust your equipment to do what it's designed to do. To me, that's the first step. That's why we take a putter on the putting green. We subconsciously make that decision because we see everybody else doing it. And we know it's going to roll because we've had plenty of experience with the putter that if you hit the back of the ball, it's going to roll. We need to develop the same amount of trust in the other equipment, particularly around the green, as we do in the putter to create the shot pattern we want. Not a single time do you play golf today did you think about making the ball roll with the putter. You thought more about how hard you were going to hit it.
Right.
Same thing with that wedge shot around the green. I'm not thinking about whether this thing's going to go in the air or not. I know it's going to go in the air. I just got to figure out how hard I need to hit it to make it go where I want it to. The same emotional and trust factors you have in a putter to create the ball on the ground, you have to develop that in the club that'll put it in the air. And when you do, which is, like I said a minute ago, a lot easier said than done, but when you do, that number of shots you take within 15, 20 yards of the green is going to come down.
Right.
Because that ball is going to be on the green now with a chance to putt.
Right. And that's where it's, you're going to make up a lot of strokes. You're exactly right. Well said. Chuck, we obviously, we can't negate the physical side of the game. And, you raised an interesting example with a player looking down and making a club selection based on, what his yardage gadget told him he should be hitting. Talk a little bit about, again, the importance of understanding how far you're hitting your clubs and how you can go, what ways that you can do it, even on the range. I mean, obviously you can use equipment to generally gauge it, but what are some things that you like to do with your students to get them, again, as Clint pointed out, to gain and gather trust, if you will, in the equipment they're using in order to help with the confidence?
Well, so our range is pretty heavily marked, so we can see, how far the ball's flying, because we've got some pretty big signs out there. What a lot of people don't take into consideration, though, a lot of facilities use range balls that were not going to fly as far as the balls they have in their bag, their play golf ball. So if they're standing there and they're hitting a shot to the 100-yard marker, they think, okay, well, I hit this 100 yards. They get on the golf course, and it goes 110 yards. So now they're thinking, boy, I really caught that one. Well, no, that's how far you really hit that club, okay? But the best player, again, the best players in the world know within 2 yards of how far that ball is going to fly. And so when you're trying to instill that with golfers, you know, the whole object with irons is how far do you carry it. It's not with woods, you know, or fairway woods, driver or fairway woods. It's how far you carry plus the roll. And if you're a higher handicap and you're a low ball hitter, you know, I mean, I've seen guys hit it, every single club in their bag, they hit it 20, 25 yards short of the green. I let it roll up because that's just indicative of how far their ball goes. So, again, the way that you can measure if you're out there playing with yourself or whether you're at the range is, you know, take a club, take a 7 or an 8 iron, find a good target that you can either borrow somebody's rangefinder or it's heavily marked. Sit there and hit, you know, 12 balls, okay? Take out the longest one, take out the shortest one. Try to find that grouping of 10 to give you your average of how far you hit it. And we all know that we get people every single day that come to the range that swear they're hitting their driver 300 yards. And they're not even close. You know, they're hitting it 230.
Right.
But in their mind, they're hitting it 300. So if you think you're hitting that ball 300 yards, and then they turn around and say, well, how far should a 7-iron go? Well, a 7-iron is going to go as far as you have the ability to hit it. And I always use this analogy. Corey Pavin's 8-iron was 138 yards when he was in his playing days on the PGA Tour. Well, I can remember at least 4 instances where he holed an 8-iron for eagle from 138 yards. Now, John Daly might turn around and hit it 190 yards. So there's no set parameter, you know, on how far you should be hitting the golf ball, all right? But you do need to know, and you can do that, again, like on the range, but just you need to hit 12 ball samples or go out and find an empty field somewhere, pace off yardage, or just start with your 8-iron. You know, pick a general target, hit it out there. Again, take out the longest, shortest. Take the other 10, now average those 10. If the average is 135, then it's 135. If it's 165, it's 165, whatever it is. But you've got to establish and you've got to know how far you're hitting this club, because if you're hitting your 8-iron, let's say 135 yards or 130 yards, and you've got water in front or a bunker in front, and that covers 132, you're not hitting an 8-iron swinging any harder. You're going to take the next club, choke down a little bit, and make a normal swing. Because if you don't know how far you're hitting the ball, how far do you, and you have to cover this 130 to get it onto the green, how are you going to know what club to hit? The other way you can do it, just go out to the golf course when there's nobody out there, you know, by yourself. Pick a number. Usually they'll have it on a sprinkler head somewhere in your golf course or a pole, which is measured to the center in most places. Stand there and hit some shots. See which one hits it to the center of the green. And if it's a 5-iron, then it's a 5-iron. If it's an 8, then it's an 8, whatever it is. But you've got to be accountable to know how far you fly your clubs. And again, the only way you're going to find that is to go to the range that's marked pretty good, have somebody with a range finder, or go to the golf course and hit it from the plate markers, you know. But you got to know.
Yeah,
you've got absolutely. You got to know, you know. There's no excuse today for not knowing. There's no excuse today for not knowing how far you hit your clubs. Even a 15 handicap or above, they have a general idea, or they think they do, of how far they hit every club. Sure, they're not going to hit every one the same distance. They might skull one. The same guy that hits it on that flop shot, you know, in the bunker I was talking about, that same guy could also skull it into the bunker, you know.
Right.
So they're not going to hit the ball exactly the same every time. That's why you have to take an average. I remember years ago I was in San Diego, actually, out by the racetrack. And I was doing a workshop, and we had about 250 people in this workshop. And I brought a guy on stage, and I said, well, how far do you hit your 5-iron? He said, well, one time I hit it 200 yards. And I said, okay, so you hit your 5-iron 200 yards one time. So if you have a 200-yard shot, what club are you going to hit? And he goes, 5-iron. And I go, where does that usually end up? He says, short. And I go, just because you hit it one time 200 yards doesn't mean that's your 200-yard club, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
and
one
that's
time I hit it 200 yards.
Yeah, and that's really boils down to you need to get out, as you suggest. You need to get out to the range and really work on the yardages and understand which each club does. And Clint, just to sort of wrap up a little bit, I think equipment is something too that gets underrated by a lot of golfers. They don't understand, and we don't obviously have time to get into all the meat and potatoes, if you will, of equipment, but being properly fit and getting the right equipment for you is a process. You can't just buy something off the rack and go out there and play and expect to get good results if it's not fitting you properly. Just give us a couple of quick tips, pointers, if you will, for those listening out there that are maybe new to the game or maybe have existing equipment. What should they be looking for? What are some identifiable markers, if you will, when making a purchase for equipment?
Well, gosh, yeah, that's a whole week's worth of conversation.
Unpack that one, Clint.
Yeah, and a quick thing. In today's world, nobody buys stuff off the rack. I mean, you can mix, match.
Right.
Like my set of clubs today, I won't mention the brand, but, 4 of the golf clubs are the old standard muscle back, and then the rest of them are hybrids, You would have never thought you'd have got that or even play with it. So you just have to try to find somebody in your local market that is knowledgeable, got the reputation for helping people refine their set makeup now. It's not a matter of buying this club over that club. It's a refinement of the makeup of your equipment. In today's world with all the adjustable drivers and 3-woods, I mean, you can tinker with them. But in my world, the vast majority of people that play need to really pay attention to the type of equipment they're playing from about the 7-iron to their putter. 7, 8, 9 pitching wedges. In today's world with the wedges that we have, they really need to try to, based on the golf courses that they play. You mentioned a minute ago, here we kind of play mountain golf, so you got to put the ball in the air a little bit. So, you want to have some wedges that maybe have a little more loft on than what you might find in Panama City or Arizona or wherever we're at, a little flatter ground. So it's really imperative, and, to publicize our profession, but find a good PGA golf professional or good club fitter in your area that will help you determine that set makeup first. Then the type of shaft you have in it and grip and all the details. But I really believe in today's world that the makeup of your set, the old 8, 3 through the pitching wedge and stuff, that's long gone. And it's good that it is, because now we can truly custom fit your equipment to the type of game you play. And so that would be my real quick, if there is a quick answer to that, find a local person that can help you find your way through that, because you can read every golf magazine this month and they'll all have a different idea.
Yeah.
So we're all individuals, obviously. We all have different type of needs, and where we play, golf courses are different. And I would highly encourage the people that are going to go talk to this person about their equipment, okay, to tell them where they play at and where they're having trouble with certain shots on that golf course to help them fit their equipment to their home course. I mean, how many people really play other than their home course? Percentage-wise, very few. So they really need to get their set makeup based on their home course and where they play the majority of their golf. And I believe that the only person who can help them with that is somebody local that knows them and the courses they're playing. Yeah,
well said. Obviously, there's a lot more information, that we could really talk about, but that's a great start and identifier for people to really think about, because it is something that's important. Because again, technology has changed a lot, and to just sort of buy a standard set when there's so many other options available. But again, you're exactly right. If you might take a trip here and there and play it at a course that you're not used to, but you're not going to custom make your set for that particular golf course if you're playing 99.9% of your rounds at your home course. You want something that's going to fit you well at your home course. So yeah, there's a lot of information there, and definitely you want to go visit your local club fitting pro, if you will, in the area, and get them to help you get that sorted out. Great discussion tonight, guys. I appreciate a lot of the advice and tips and some very interesting conversation. And as always, I'm going to give you guys a quick opportunity just to let the folks know where they can reach out if they choose. And Chuck, I'm going to let you go first, and then Clint.
Okay. You can go to chuckevansgolf.com or ultimateguidetogolf.com, and all my contact information's there. Email, phone number, all social media as well, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's all Chuck Evans. So reach out if you need some help with your game or you want to have your equipment looked at, and we'll look forward to talking to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Chuck. And Clint, best way for
Real
folks
simple,
to reach you?
Always is clintgolf001@yahoo.com. If they'll send me an email with information, I'll give them a call back and be more than happy to have a conversation about most anything with the golf game, and particularly short game, as you well know. But it's clintgolf001@yahoo.com. And, guys, it's been a pleasure again. I always look forward to the last Thursday. So y'all have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks, Clint. All right, guys, thank you very much again for an interesting Coach's Corner panel, and I look forward to the next months with you guys back.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it, guys. All right, that was the Coach's Corner panel with Clint Wright and Chuck Evans, as always, bringing their best. I appreciate it very much, with a healthy discussion on identifying a champion and how some of you amateurs out there can help your game as well, with some very interesting facts and tips from two of the best in the business. As I mentioned, I was going to play a short clip, if you will, from our sponsor, golfswing.com, and mention a few other things afterwards, and then I will get ready for my very special guests that are going to be joining me here in just a few minutes. So have a listen to golfswing.com's advertisement.
Are you finally ready to improve your golf game? Golfswing.com is changing the way golfers learn online. With the largest collection of golf training programs and drills on the planet, Golfswing.com can help you improve every part of your game. Whether you want to gain more distance, hit it closer, or just sink more putts, Golfswing.com's staff of world-class coaches can help you gain the results you need. Watch unlimited videos on any device from anywhere in the world and start playing better, scoring lower, having more fun, and saving money. Get your fix on demand at Golfswing.com.
All right, and once again, thank you very much to the folks at golfswing.com for their continued support of the program here, and always look forward to working with them. We've had a great relationship thus far with them at golfswing.com. And again, just a quick reminder at the end of the show, if you want to go to golfswing.com and subscribe to their website, they've got a great online video academy, teaching academy, if you will, with some great video tips from some of the best instructors around. Again, if you just enter in promo code Golf Talk Live, you'll save 50% off the subscription price. So definitely want to check it out. And don't forget to join me as well. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Tuesday mornings I do a great show called The Women of Golf with my very good friend and co-host, LPGA professional Cindy Miller. Her and I host that, where we really talk with a lot of young and up-and-comers off the Symetra Tour, and even recent graduates to the LPGA Tour that are really starting their journey in golf. And obviously we get a great opportunity to interview some of the winners of both of those tours, as well as some of the legends from the game, from the Legends Tour. So definitely want to stick around. And we also have a number of great business folks who are really doing their part to help elevate women in golf, not just at the professional level, but business-wise as well. And and teaching them really how golf can help them in their business life as well as their personal life, with just some fun and some interesting opportunities that golf can help make available. As I mentioned, I've got two great guests that are going to be joining me here in just a few moments. Of course, I'm talking about John Decker, and as I mentioned earlier, he is a regular as well, not only a guest, but regular on the Coach's Corner panel every month. And joining him is his partner, if you will, Dr. Angelica Napolitano. She is referred to as the Golf Doc, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them here in just a moment. And they are the hosts of a great new podcast called Golf Swing RX Podcast, the prescription for your game. So let me just, again, quick reminder, join me Tuesday mornings on the Women of Golf show from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network. And then every Thursday evening, I'm right back here on Golf Talk Live, again on the same network, blogtalkradio.com. And at the end of the show, during the outro, there are some other great ways you can tune into the show as well. So let me introduce my guests, and then I'm going to bring them on, and we're going to have a great discussion about their new podcast, Golf Swing RX Podcast, the prescription for your game. First up, as I mentioned, is John Decker. He's an instructor with golfswing.com and a motivational speaker. He's also a former teaching professional at the New Albany Country Club. He was the 2015 Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year. Prior to that, he was the head instructor at the Grand Cypress Academy of Golf in Orlando, where he worked under top 100 instructors Fred Griffin and Phil Rogers. Also, he has authored the book Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, which also has an accompanying Bible study. Also joining him, as I mentioned, is his partner on the podcast, Dr. Angelica Napolitano, aka the Golf Doc. She's a TPI certified doctor of physical therapy who is committed to helping golfers achieve pain-free performance without the need for medications or surgery. Her practice, Optimal Physical Therapy and Wellness, is located in Jupiter, Florida, one of the most well-established golf communities in the U.S. The combination of her skill set as a physical therapist and passion for the game of golf has fostered the quintessential marriage for expert niche creation in the golf rehab and fitness community. So let me welcome two good friends and my special guests tonight, John Decker and Dr. Angelica Napolitano. Good evening, guys, and welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Ted, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Angel, how are you?
I'm good. I'm just trying not to talk over one another. So
sorry about that.
I'm doing great, though. It's nice to be back
with
you guys again.
Well, thank you. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, before you guys came on board, you guys actually had me just a couple of weeks ago. In fact, before I went on my holidays to California, you had me on your show, Golf Swing RX Podcast, the prescription for your game, just 2 weeks ago. And thank you again for that. I had a great time and actually had a chance to listen to it here just recently. And I really enjoyed the interview, and you guys did a fantastic job as always. And I appreciate you guys having me on your show. So thank you again for that.
Of course. And we love having you on. So anytime you're welcome, Ted, anytime.
Yeah, Ted, it was a real pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Maybe you should say, go,
all right.
Go, John, go, Angel.
No, don't worry. I got this. All right, so I'm going to ask each of you this. We're going to talk about, obviously, the podcast here in just a moment or so, but I think let's back it up a little bit. And I kind of know the answer to this, but for those that maybe don't, you guys, again, have sort of come together on this mission, if you will, and producing this podcast. But how did you guys first connect? So, John, I'm going to start with you, and then Angel, if you want to jump in as well as we go along and correct John, just in case he makes any mistakes. But John, just sort of talk about how you guys first connected.
Well, first of all, Ted, thank you again for having us on the show. And Angel, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to tonight's show. I think it was back in September or October of last year. I got a Facebook friend request from Angel. And so I accepted a request, and I think it was maybe a week or two later, she sent me a message and said, she'd been watching some of my golf videos and that we should connect. And so we started talking, and the first thing that really grabbed me when I was talking with her is her passion for helping other people, which is something that's very dear to my heart. I know that she does a lot of philanthropic work. She has a very caring heart. She works with just will do anything for you, and for her patients from from all the reports that I've heard, and we got an opportunity to meet each other in Orlando. We met at because I'm in Ohio and she's in Jupiter, so we met just during the PGA show, and we decided to form a partnership because I knew that there was a lot of things that she brought to the table that I see as a golf instructor. I have the ability to tell people what to do to get better, but if their body won't allow them to do it, it's kind of an uphill body. So I really, one of my passions besides the game of golf and teaching is working out and staying in shape. And one of my goals is to be TPI certified. I know that she's TPI certified. She's very good on camera. She's very attractive. She's very well spoken, and she's very intelligent, and brings a lot of marketing skills to the game. And I knew that for me, she was like the perfect package of what I wanted to partner with in a podcast.
Perfect. So, Angel, let me ask you, obviously, John had some very nice things to say in that, as I knew he would. You had a chance, you connected through social media, and you had a chance to see some of John's videos that obviously was produced through golfswing.com, which coincidentally is a sponsor of the show. And obviously, I'm sure how you guys connected is pretty accurate, but you obviously saw a vision in this as well from your perspective. You're not a teaching professional per se in golf, but you do work with people that obviously get injured in golf-related injuries and things like that, and you saw an opportunity to partner with John in some fashion. So sort of unpack that a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, on how that came about and what your thought process was in sort of moving to the next stage.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you for having us on again as well, and for coming on our show a couple of weeks ago. But so for John and I really honestly saw his videos, and I think it might have been the blue pants. No, I'm just kidding. He has these really cool, I love the pants. The colorful pants got me, Yeah. But anyway, it was just like the way he could speak to people. He's not talking he's not talking at you. He's talking to you, you know what I mean? And he had that ability to speak, and the gift of gab that you say, Ted. And he was he came off very friendly to me. And when you come off in that certain way, you give that certain vibe, people connect to that. Some people will and some people won't, depending on their personalities. And through video, I saw that with him, and I was like, this guy seems really cool. He knows what he's talking about. Like, I'm not a teaching professional, but it seems like he knew the game, and he does. And it was just very, very well done. And so I reached out, and I was like, I really like these videos. Like, you're great. You're great on camera. Like he said, I was great on camera. Like, John is, amazing. And he's like, yeah. And he wrote me back, and it was a friendly talk. We got on the phone. And then ever since then, we've just built this relationship and friendship through, our locations, thousands of miles away, but we still had this connection that just brought us together that we couldn't deny. And we're like, we need to do something with this. So it's not that I saw an opportunity or that he saw an opportunity. It was more of we should work together because we have something to bring to the table that's going to ultimately help others, whether it's in their golf game or preventing injury or whatever it may be. But it's nice that a golf professional sees the worth in a doctor of physical therapy who is using golf as their niche to target their patients, and that they have a passion for, and he can respect that what I do links in with what he does, and he doesn't say, oh, I'm just gonna teach them a way around their functional ability. He understands what I do, and I understand what he does, and we respect each other through that. And through that mutual respect, we honestly built this relationship and this business collaboration, and we decided, let's do a podcast.
Right. Well, that was going to be my next question, John, really for you, was sort of who originally came up with the idea of doing the podcast, and just talk about a little bit some of the discussions that you guys had. Okay, what are we going to do? I mean, when you first do it, and as I said to you on my interview with you guys a few weeks ago, I said that really I put a lot of thought process into what I want to do. I just didn't want to come on there and talk about how to fix this or, how to correct that, issue. I wanted to be able to talk about a variety of different things. So talk a little bit, John, if you wouldn't mind, and then again, Angel, I'll let you to add to that in your words. But John, just talk about really sort of who came up with the idea originally of doing the podcast, and what was sort of the thought process and what you guys wanted to do.
Well, originally, I'm pretty sure it was Angel as far as coming up with the idea, because I knew that doing a podcast was something that I was not going to be able to do on my own. I knew that I was going to have to rely on her, and she's done a lot of the heavy lifting as far as that goes. I knew that my skill set is presentation. I've done a lot of podcasts. I've been the guest since I wrote my book. I've been on a lot of shows. I've been on a lot of radio shows, and so I'm used to doing this. So I knew that from my standpoint of being able to get my message across, I would do well. But the nuts and bolts of doing that, I knew that I didn't have that skill set. And so she kind of came up with the idea. I knew that we would team up and do very well together. And then we both, coming up with the title and all that stuff, we kind of collaborated on that when we were down in Orlando. But I knew that whether we did a podcast or whether we did something in video form, because eventually we would like to do some videos where people could watch either online or they could either through golfswing.com or whatever platform we go through, where we could do instructional videos and talk about specific parts of like the lower body, for example. She could talk about stretches and strengthening exercises and injury prevention and things like that, and I could talk about how the lower body is used in the golf swing. So that was kind of the idea. But as far as doing the podcast, I would say mainly that she was more into that, because I know she felt comfortable in actually putting it together.
Right. And Angel, talk about a little bit, and I know you both have sort of mentioned a little bit, but what was your vision, if you will, in your mind of really what you wanted to get across? In other words, what was the overall theme and purpose of the show? Obviously you're interviewing a number of people. Again, you had me on, and you've had some others on. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But what was sort of in your mindset, if you will, when you were thinking about doing a podcast? What was the message that you really wanted to relay to the listeners out there?
Yeah, so the message was pretty simple, and I think we're establishing that pretty clear so far, and that is basically to have people on that can ultimately help your game through holistic wellness. So I have that as far as the physical therapy aspect and the movement aspect. And if you take a person and you show them you break down a golf swing and you show them this is how you're supposed to do it step by step. Now, okay, that's great, but can that person physically do it? Probably not, as we all know. They probably can't.
Right.
And so John, is on with me because he brings to the table that skill set and that expertise as a teaching professional. And on my side, I'm an expert of movement, and I can find your physical limitations that combined with what he teaches and how I can correct your limitations, you can take those two, make it, a great swing. And not only that, but we have people on there that talk about, pelvic health and wellness for the golfer as it relates to your pelvic floor. This is just an example, but I had another physical therapist who's a specialist in that. And you don't, honestly, the general public does not know how important those types of things are and how detrimental it could be to something going on there and what dysfunctions you may have. If you think they're not a dysfunction, they are a dysfunction. And she points that out. And for the golfer, there's a lot of rotation, so that really messes with our pelvic floor. And our pelvic floor is very important in the function of reproduction, urinating, all of those types of things. And so that's a big part of life, right? So
Right.
That's just one example of like what we've had on the show. We've had, fun ones where we do like random review of the week of like a training aid. We make it fun and we make it easy for the listeners to listen and to gain insight and feedback to things that they probably don't know, and the knowledge that's not just so general that oh wow, I didn't know that. And it's kind of like eye-opening, and we're really just serving the population with the expertise and the knowledge and education that we have, and we've done pretty good with that so far. We also had Dr. Brian Broussard and Dr. John Broussard on, and they talked about, Brian is a golf physical therapist as well. He specializes in golf, and then his brother is a DO, and he specializes in regenerative medicine. And so talking about stem cells, prolotherapy, PRP, all those things are stuff that people want to know about. They're the hottest trends, you know what I mean? And these things help our population, because our population a lot of times may be the aging person, right? So stem cell and PRP is great for that. We degenerate within our bodies. We get tendinitis from overuse. So the golfer, we're overusing for 18 holes, and for, how many shots per hole. So that's a very repetitive overuse. So these things are very important. And I think John and I nailed it when coming up with our guests to interview, and just keeping it positive, fun, and informative.
Well, and John, that goes to, again, obviously the theme of your show is what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to certainly throw some instruction in there as well, and talk about some of the do's and the don'ts, if you will, on how to play your best out in the golf course. But you also want, with Angel's help, to be able to help prepare that individual, because that's, she raises some very interesting points. A lot of people don't understand, when it relates to the golf swing, how the body connects throughout the golf swing. So having somebody there that can explain that a little bit better, and also through various guests, really gives you and the listeners an opportunity to sort of work together through that process. You can explain certain things that she can explain other things, and you sort of work as a partnership, if you will, in doing that. So when you're putting your thoughts together and getting topics prepared for upcoming shows, what's some of the dialogue that you and Angel have in saying, okay, this is an area that I think we can really expand on? What's that conversation go like?
Well, first of all, the standard line I have with Angel is, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on Facebook. So I'm not a medical expert. So I've learned a lot by just listening to her and watching her videos and watching the show. But we talked about, we've got some power-packed, really great guests. I mean, we had Fast Eddie Fernandez, who guy I used to work with at Grand Cypress, who's a long drive. He's He's the 2018 Masters long drive champion. He was just on the Golf Channel just recently. So he's hitting the ball 400 yards at the age of 48. And so we talked a lot about the technique of that. We also talked about, the physical side and his recovery and the things that he does on that side. I just confirmed today that Fred Griffin, who is my former boss and mentor, he's going to be on the show as well. He confirmed that with me today, and he is a finalist. He was a finalist. He made it to the Final Four for the PGA this year's 2019 PGA Teacher of the Year, and also Eric Eshelman, who was announced on the Golf Channel last night as the 2019 PGA Golf Professional of the Year. One of my really good friends. In fact, he was in my wedding. I reached out to him, and we're going to have him on the show when things slow down. But he is on XM radio. He is all over the country right now doing all kinds of interviews and stuff. So I'm really excited to get him on the show. That probably won't be until the end of the year. But, when we were sitting down, we would talk about each one of our things that things that we could bring to the table. And then we wanted to break it down into specific subjects where we might talk about upper body or lower body or wrist injuries or things like that. So, but right now, it's been really crazy because our very first show we were going to do a show on, I think it was going to be on wrist injuries, and we were going to talk about grip and things like that. And then Tiger Woods wins the Masters, and we got on the phone and we're like, forget that. We're going to talk about Tiger Woods winning the Masters. And so, there's a lot of, we're pretty much going with the current trends and what's hot at the moment, because we can plan it all out and then something major changes. But so far it's flowed very nicely. We work well together and we communicate together, on a regular basis, so we know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, you've got to be certainly you've got to be current, and as we talked about on your show with me, you have to really find an area in golf or whatever it is that you do that you're passionate about, and each of you have obviously a different passionate, but at the same time, when put together, create something else that can manifest itself, if you will, into a whole different area. And John, with your golf instruction, and Angel, with physical therapy and wellness, you can bring a whole thing. And a lot of people might be sitting there thinking to themselves right now, listening to the show, and they're saying, okay, well, I understand, yeah, it's great to get some golf tips, and it's great to understand how the body works and things like that, but how does that help my golf game? So how do you, Angel, how do you explain that? How are you going to relay that to the listeners in such a way that they're going to understand the importance of what it is that you're trying to do with the show?
So as far as the body and when it comes to the golf swing, not everybody's going to have the same issue, right? We're all different in our bodies.
Right.
We all function differently. We all move differently. But we all have the same parts, essentially. So if you are noticing you're not getting a lot of power and distance and all these things, that a lot of that comes from your takeaway. So what happens during what do you need to not be restricted during that? And we talk a lot about, we will be talking a lot about those types of things. So, if you can't load fully into your backswing, that's probably why you're not getting, your power and your distance. And there's probably a lot of limitations there in your thoracic spine, which is your middle spine area between your shoulder blades, right? We need that rotation there. Or you might have a lot of tightness in your shoulder. Or when it comes to John, it could be maybe their grip is off, or they're standing too far from the ball, or something along those lines. But when it comes to the body, we want to break down what it is that the swing needs, and what the body needs to carry out and execute that ultimate, powerful, long distance type swing. That's going to be straight on too. We're not trying to, shank it and hook it and all those things. So we want to get people to realize that this is a game, again, of repetitive overuse. If we're repetitively using something that's not working, there's going to be an injury at some point. It's not if an injury, it's when the injury comes, And so people really need to take care of their bodies if they're avid golfers. Even just if you're going out here and there with friends, sometimes, and you enjoy it, you still need to take care of your body. You need to take care of your body in general to live a long, healthy life and a happy life, because we only have one, and we live in it forever. And so if it's not properly functioning right and moving correctly, it doesn't matter if you're a golfer or not, you're going to have problems, and you're going to be hurting, and it's going to affect your life. So that's the important thing that I want people to understand, that it's not come to me when you have an injury. It's not let's talk about why you have this injury. It's let's prevent this injury, and let's get your swing good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something too that obviously is a conversation that a lot of golfers don't have, and really can't have, John, with somebody like yourselves about injuries, because we're not trained in that area as Angel is, and so for us to we can certainly talk about it. Yeah, I get a sore wrist too sometimes, or or my feet are sore from walking around the golf course, whatever. I mean, we can come up with all different scenarios, but again, it's not really understanding how the body works. We can only, through our limited knowledge, really explain that. And something I want to talk about here with you guys is earlier this evening on the Coach's Corner panel, John, I know you're very familiar with that. we talked about, really identifying and building a champion, if you will. And, one of the things that I think a lot of golfers sort of shun away from is practice time, because they're not really wanting to spend a lot of time, or they overspend time on the practice, course or what have you, the practice tee rather, and they don't really get the full benefit from it, or they end up practicing so much, they're hitting so many golf balls out in the practice tee that they end up creating an injury. So do you want to, through this show, through this podcast, really, in addition to explaining some of the injuries, talk about from a preventative standpoint and how to get the most out of their practice sessions without over-exerting some of those areas, whether it be muscles or joints? Is that something that you guys are going to put together in some of your conversations for future shows as well?
I think that's a great point. And, preventative maintenance is one of the things, how to properly warm up, the things that you should be doing, before your round, before you ever get to the golf course, to make sure that you're ready to go. And then obviously dealing with injuries, because I deal with a lot of students who a couple weeks ago, I had a high school kid who had gone to a golf camp. He had injured his thumb there because he'd hit a lot of balls. And so we were working through that. And so I was basically, hey, we need to stick with the short game. And I told him, he was asking me questions, medical questions. And the first thing I told him is, I'm not a doctor. I said, you need to go to a doctor and get this looked at, because the last thing I'm going to do is put my neck out on the line and say, oh, yeah, you can get through that, and then something serious happen. So, you always have to look out. You have to look out for the wellness of your student, whether they're a patient, as a doctor would, or whether they're a student in a lesson. And so that's important, that we do that. So I think, the body will tell you a lot. I've always said that when you hit a good shot, it usually doesn't hurt. So I'm a big believer that a lot of injuries occur, and like Angel was saying, if you repeat the same thing over and over again, and it's the wrong way to do it, you are going to wear out really fast that some part of the body. And it's usually either in the lower back, it's in the wrist, elbows, and shoulders. That's what I've seen from my experience. And so I always want someone, when they hit a golf shot, to have the weight of their body supported into the left hip and their left heel, and they're in a balanced position, so that the body is absorbing the energy of the shot and not the wrist and the elbow and the arms and things like that. So I think that the combination of technique, preventive maintenance, all those things are definitely topics that we want to talk about. We talked a lot of those types of things with Eddie when we had him on, and we'll be doing more of that in the future.
Yeah, and Angel, I think also too, in addition to opportunities to talk about preventative maintenance, but also the correct motion as well. I mean, for the golf swing, and again, as I mentioned a few moments ago, a lot of people really don't understand how the body works in the golf swing and what moves first, or what should certainly move first. And a lot of times this brings on injuries because they're moving different components of their body in an incorrect form. Because obviously the golf swing, John, as you know, is actually, believe it or not, is made up of a natural movement. Our body can swing in a natural rhythm. But if we, lean incorrectly or we set up incorrectly, it can alter that. So is that an area, too, that Angel, that you guys want to get into, is to talk about the correct movements within a golf swing from not only John's perspective, but your perspective as well?
Yeah, without a doubt. That's one of the most important things. I just real quick want to kind of go back to the question you asked John on listening to your body and preventing injury. It's very important to listen to your body. And if your body is tired, if you are doing certain things that you normally don't do and you're getting frustrated, that means you need to rest. You need to, the next day, do not practice, do not do anything, sleep, drink a lot of water, eat good foods, rest. Hugely important, because you will go back the next day and you'll be even worse than the day before. But if you take that day to rest, and then maybe the next day do some gentle stretching and a gentle, light workout, and then you get back at it, you're going to notice such a difference in your game because your body needs to reset. Your nervous system needs to reset. So I wanted just to make that point clear that mind-body connection comes from our nervous system. If our nervous system isn't responding or our nervous system is high, like it ramped up in the high speed and we're fight or flight mode, then we can't accomplish anything. So that rest is necessary. And then as far as your question with the motions and like the sequencing of the swing, there's certain times during the swing where we need something to be like during the downswing, right? During that transition, we need to open up our hips. We need to like start turning, right? And we need to get those hips to rotate. That's the first thing. So, okay, I can tell you that all day, but how do I get that to happen is what people want to know, right? How do I get those?
Right.
Because I'm not, they might try and they're like, I'm not doing what they said on the podcast. But how do I do it? It's the how, and that's where I come in. Oh, well, this is how you do it. And so that's very, important and respected knowledge to have and to provide to people, because if they take that advice and they actually do the work, they will see significant changes and they will see no injuries or hopefully no injuries. I can't guarantee that, but, and when someone sends you a swing, I'm just putting that out there. Do, face on and from the side, frontal view and side view, like if you want to send a swing. So we need to see the whole picture, right, John?
Exactly.
It's very important to see from all angles of how the person is moving, because one view is no view. And you need to look at it all, and you really need to capture it. And the eye is not specifically the greatest tool to capture it. You need slow-mo. You need those high-tech, types of devices and things to really capture the swing ultimately. But like I said, if you want to slow-mo it down and someone sends you a video from the side and the front is necessary to really ultimately look at the swing and go, this is what's going on. So, emotions are very important, because emotions are where we get stuck and where we're not basically initiating and doing things that we need to get that shot perfectly, to make it to the tee, or not the tee, the green, So if we don't have those motions, how are we, or we don't know how to gain them, or how our body can get that skill, we can't move forward. I mean, anybody can swing a golf club and hit a ball, but it's not going to be pretty most of the time, So it's very important. I'm glad you brought that up. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, and John, it just goes to, what we've talked about many times on Coach's Corner, fixing a lot of the problems, typical problems that most golfers have, whether it be a slice or a hook or something like that, is actually easier once people understand how the body moves in the golf swing. Because really a lot of it can be something simple as the direction that the club face is pointing can often fix, or how the club is being gripped either properly or improperly. So a lot of these typical fixes that we see in most people's golf games are actually easier to fix than what people realize. What isn't always easy is what Angel just described, is that if the sequencing is off, and the person doesn't understand that, and why the body is moving, counterintuitive to what it should be, it's because they're doing something wrong, maybe in their setup and that. And that's really where you're going to come in, is to talk about getting them in the proper positions right from the get-go in order to allow them to make those proper swings. Correct?
That is correct. I've taught at every level. I've taught on the PGA Tour. I've taught beginners. And the one thing that I focus on the most is the setup. And tour players spend more time working on their setup. I heard an interview one time where Tiger Woods said he spends 2 hours a day working on his setup. The average golfer doesn't spend 2 hours a year working on their setup. He spends 2 hours a day, because people don't realize when you're on the golf course, you're not hitting off mats and you're not hitting off level lies like you get on the range. You're hitting off all kinds of uneven lies. and over time you'll start cheating because of the flaws in your swing. And so the setup is critical. Yep. The sequencing and the motioning that happened that Angel was talking about, none of that can occur if you don't hold the club properly. Because if you hold the club improperly, it stops all of those sequencing, because you have to somehow square that club face up. And if you're holding the club wrong, that means you have to use your hands to square the club face up, which causes you to lose power, lose control. You don't get your weight shift. You don't get any of those things that the tour players get. So how to hold the club is so critical. The club face really determines your golf swing. So there's so much that we work on, with the setup. And the thing is it's not like you fix it and then you don't ever have to touch it again. I've always said that your flaws, it's kind of like, when I was working with Bob Sowards, who played on the tour, he had some tendencies in his golf swing, and I said, Bob, it's like being an alcoholic. I said, once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. That means you've always got to work on this. You can't say, well, I fixed it. You've never fixed it. You always have to work on it. So that's where the training, where a really good golf professional, and if you're out there and you're wanting to get instruction, we can do online instruction, but if you have a pro at your local facility, it's important that you have the knowledge of why your ball is doing what it's doing, and know what to do to fix it. If you're having physical issues, then you need to find a doctor of physical therapy, or you can send videos to Angel as well. These are ways that you can enjoy the game. And I've always believed that knowledge is power. So the more I know about my problems, and the better chance I have to improve, because I'm always trying to improve myself no matter what I'm doing. So these are things that I hope the listeners out there will gravitate to and realize that we all love the game of golf. It's a great way to spend time with the family and friends, but no one, including myself, wants to go out and play miserably. I don't want to go out and play bad golf. I want to go out and play good golf. And I want to be, when I get done with my round, I want to feel good. I don't want to be hurting. So these are important things that I hope the listeners will take to heart.
Right. And Angel, the other thing too that I'm assuming that you want to get across through the podcast is not only proper mechanic techniques, swing mechanic techniques, and things like that, and preparation, but also a healthier lifestyle for people as well. We talked about, this was another area that we talked about earlier on my show on the Coach's Corner segment, and that it's not just about going out to the range and beating balls and making putts on the practice green. It's also about changing other areas of your life. For instance, good nutrition, eating healthier and things like that gives you more energy and allows you your muscles and things like that to regenerate properly. And obviously, as we age, things do decrease a little bit. That's just part of nature. But there's other things as well, and obviously proper exercise. So I'm assuming these are things too that you're going to tackle on the show as well on future episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. We have nutritionists lined up to actually speak. But on behalf of the nutrition side, yes, there are certain things for different sports, certain systems within our body that kind of correlate to the different sports and how much energy we are using and need to restore and produce. So like the game of golf, when we go to hit a ball, it's a quick, fast motion, and so it's like a sprint in a way. So we need to feed that system appropriately as if we were a sprinter or just a quick burst of energy, and then the rest time in between from hitting the next ball needs to be appropriate to restore and replenish what we just gave away in that quick burst of energy with our swing. So like these topics are certainly important, and that's just, again, not common knowledge, right? Many people don't know that, a basketball player is more endurance, a marathon runner, it's very different types of food sources. And so in between rounds and stuff, what should you be eating? What should you be eating in general to live a healthy lifestyle? That's very important because, yes, it is a holistic approach, and a lot of these people need to make lifestyle changes because, like John said, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, right? Once a poor movement pattern has developed over years and lifespans, that is not going to change overnight. So that's a lifestyle change and something that needs to be worked on forever. And I know that sounds like a hard commitment and a long commitment, and it's just you feel tired thinking about that. But people need to approach these changes with enthusiasm and positivity and a mindset that's not going to be fearful of the commitment and fearful of the change, because that will ultimately fail you. So mindset is also very important when it comes to these types of factors, because I know we all have fear of, failure, fear of commitment, fear of this, fear of that. And that, again, remember what I said last time, the F word, that's an F word. Fear is the biggest F word. And it's the biggest thing in our society today, holding us back from achieving what we desire. So where does that come from? Your mindset. So adapting a good mindset, nutrition, exercise, all of these things are necessary for us to be our best selves. So, yeah, we're going to talk about everything, not just the golf swing and what you need, but how to be healthy in general. So, yeah.
Right. And John, we've talked about some of these things as well on the Coach's Corner panel over the years as well, since you've been part of it and even before. But, these are things that, at first listen, if you will, the audience is probably scratching their head and saying, well, I don't understand. How is this going to help my golf game and that? And really part of the purpose of your show is really sort of unpacking some of these things we've been talking about here tonight and explaining it in such a way that people will see the benefits. Because one of the problems that most golfers have, and this as an instructor, as do I, is they're always looking for this quick fix. They think, well, if I could just tweak this or tweak that, I'll hit the ball straighter and further, and I'm going to, shoot lower scores. And certainly those things can help from time to time, but the big picture is, and I equate this with a regular job. When you apply for a job, you come in with a certain skill set. Even as a new employee and a younger employee, you come in with certain skills, whether it's a college degree or other employment skills that you've brought along the way, and you come in and apply those skills to that job. But if you come in with nothing and you're ill-prepared, then you're not going to be successful at that venture. And this is what often happens, I think, with some of our golfers in there is they come, they're not, they don't eat well, they don't really take care of themselves, they're, maybe extremely overweight or very unhealthy, and they can't understand why, number one, they're not swinging the club very well because they're out of shape, and number two, they have very low energy. And these are things that have really become a problem in the golf industry with some of our recreational golfers, is that they're just not taking good care of themselves. So obviously these are things that you guys want to tackle as we just discussed. But what about things like, for instance, we've talked about preventative maintenance, and you're obviously going to cover specific injuries in that, but is there going to be sort of a post-round discussion as well? So when people come off the golf course, and I know, John, this is more of Angel's thing, and Angel, I want you to jump in here as well. But is there going to be discussion or discussions on your show, if you will, about post-round things, what they can do to help in the recovery from your standpoint, John, and then from Angel?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Ted. We haven't specifically talked about that subject, but I think we could do it because, for example, in a post round, now I realize that, most people, when they're done playing golf, they're going to go to the bar with their friends and they're going to sit down and have a drink, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want people to go out and play golf and have a social. They're not training to play for try to qualify for the U.S. Open. So the average golfer's not. So we want them to do that. But what I do want my students, from my perspective, what I want them to do is sit down and add up, okay, how many fairways did I hit? How many penalty shots did I have? How many putts did I have? How many greens and regulations did I hit? And how many sand stays, up and downs? So I want them to do their post-round analysis that way, so I could cover that side. and then Angel can cover the side. Okay, are we drinking? Were we drinking enough water during the round? Were we fatigued? You could talk about, are there any aches and pains, things like that. So she could talk more about that side. So that is certainly, and especially if we had the right guest on, that is certainly a subject matter that we could cover. And I think that Angel and I share the same passion for physical fitness and working out, and we also want those that maybe are on that, that have the same passions that we do, because we want the show to not only help you become better golfers, but we want your quality of life to be better, no matter what you do, no matter what sport you play. So hopefully we could get some crossover, from that, and who knows, maybe have some guests on that maybe aren't in the golf industry but are in other aspects that could help other sports, that could be translated to golf as well. So that's a great point, though, Ted. I like the idea.
Well, and Angel, I think it's just, again, people after the round, as John suggested, certainly they want to go and have fun, and that's the whole purpose of golf. It's to have fun, and yeah, there's a little competition too for some along the way, but ultimately, we do want them to have fun. But in the real world, you want them to have a good experience, and you want them to have the skills and the knowledge of how to handle their physical side, if you will, and their emotional side post-round, so that it maintains that good experience and continues on. So the next time they're going out, they're not thinking, oh gosh, yeah, I remember when I played last Tuesday or something like that. I felt like garbage, the next day. And you want to provide them with a skill set of not only how to handle themselves on the golf course, but after the golf course to make it a more well-rounded experience. So again, you're going to talk about some of those things, correct?
Yeah. And it really comes down to about making healthier choices. That's a big one when it comes to post-round recovery. When people go and they go to the bar or they're even drinking while they play, we have to consider the heat, especially during the summer and especially in Florida. So if the heat is huge, we have to stay hydrated. So if you're drinking on the course while you're playing, drink water in between. If you're not, drink water. And after, if you're going to go have fun, have a bite to eat, have a couple beers, drink water in between and make a healthier choice. Don't get maybe the chicken wings, maybe get, a grilled chicken club sandwich and fruit. I know this is hard to just kind of grasp these concepts and really put them into play, but it's going to help you the next day not feel like crap. And if you do feel like crap the next day, taking that back to the course when you go to play again, you're going to do the same stuff you did, because those emotions are tied to one another, and your mental state is not going to forget that. Your nervous system is not going to forget that, because that memory is triggering it. And so you're going to play the exact same way, and you're going to do the exact same thing to piss you off. So again, meditation is great for recovery. Cryotherapy, which is cold, a lot of ice baths, or going to a cryotherapy type spa. Those new float spas where you float in water and Epsom salt, those are great for recovery. Foam rolling and gentle stretching, just, like I said, meditating and just resting. And eating healthy and drinking water are really big things. And yes, we will discuss these things because they are very important. It's almost like talking about what you do post-exercise at the gym. If you go in and you go lift heavy and you're like, it's just the same concept, because golf is an activity. It's a sport. Exercising is an activity, sport. Everything kind of comes together, and you have to do recovery, and you have to do post-round things that are going to make us feel better. You don't go to the gym and then go eat McDonald's and have a beer after. Do you? No. People go to the gym, then they have their shake, or they eat a healthy meal, right? Same thing goes for golf. It's no different. But going to the gym is not as social as playing golf. So that's where the problem occurs. And that's where we get that, kind of confusion with what we should do after and how to recover. But it's really ultimately the same thing. So just think about that when you're after golf. Go have your fun, but be responsible and smart to your choices and how you're going to approach that post-recovery and post-round type behavior.
Right. Well said. And John, just sort of to wrap up, there's something that I'm going to talk about here in just a moment or two, but I want you to also mention you've obviously developed some additional partnerships and sponsorships, if you will, with some folks in addition to myself at golfswing.com. Just talk a little bit about that, and obviously, and then I'll talk about Golf Talk Live.
Well, golfswing.com, I've been with them now for about a year and a half, and it's been just a great experience, and it's a great way to go on and get great instruction from a lot of great teachers, including Hal Sutton, who's a tour player, former tour player, and he does some playing instruction videos. But basically, the videos are set up there's different series. You can watch short game series, you can watch full swing. There's Bobby Wilson, who's a long drive champion, is on there. He has a bunch of video series, and for hitting the ball farther. I did a short game series called Pitch Perfect. It's 108 videos that I filmed over 3 days in Dallas, and I did that, and it's done very well. But if you go to golfswing.com /John Decker, I spell my name JONDECKER, you can see the videos that I've done. And we're in the partnership with the PGA of America will be coming up in the beginning of the year, and I'm real excited about that. And I think that's going to really elevate the golfswing.com to another level. And opening it up to more videos, and it's a great way for someone if a lot of my students, all of my drills are on there, so it's a good way for them to do follow-up instruction with me as well.
Right, and they're also in a sense sponsoring and supporting your podcast, Golf Swing RX
Absolutely.
Podcast.
Yes.
As well, and as well as I am with Golf Talk Live. One of the reasons why I wanted to sort of throw my support is because, obviously I do my programs here, and they're obviously different than what you guys are doing, and that's what makes it unique is the fact that you guys are doing something that's specialized, if you will. You're talking about obviously instruction, but you're also talking about the physical side of the game as well in more detail and more depth. And one of the things that we've talked about that I want to do in the interim, and I'm going to tell about the longer term, is beginning next month, you guys are going to come back on once a month through the end of the year, and with some specific topics. And we're going to, we'll talk about that at a later point, but and actually come on Golf Talk Live and talk about some of the different things that maybe some of the ones that we've talked about tonight, and maybe some of the other ones as well. And really, this is in preparation for next season. In the new year, I'm going to be launching, as we talked about on your show here a couple of weeks ago, a brand new network called iGolf Sports Network. And one of the things that I plan on doing is sort of expanding, to Angel, to what you talked about earlier, is adding sort of that visual component to your podcast. So essentially what we're going to do through the iGolf Sports Network is there will be a regular segment of the Golf Swing RX podcast, but now we're going to add a little twist to it. Instead of purely an audio format, it's now going to have the visual component. So this will allow you guys, as you've talked about here tonight, to really showcase some of the issues and some of the concerns, both in the instructional side, but also in the health and wellness side of the game, and have some great guests on that segment as well, like nutritionists and things like that, to really open up the doors and let people see how they can improve their golf game, but also how they can improve their life overall. And this is something that I'm really excited about, and I'm happy to partner with you guys and having you come on board as a regular contributor to the iGolf Sports Network. I think it's going to be a great partnership, and we're going to sort of get that going here over the next several months with the Golf Talk Live format as we transition into iGolf Sports Network. So I'm really excited about that, and I'd love some feedback from you guys about that as well. Angel, I'll let you go first.
some feedback considering us being on your show every month and the iGolf Sports. Yeah. Like, what do you want me to say? Yeah, we're ready. We're excited. We, I mean, that's the feedback. When John and I started this, we don't expect anything to come of it, but just to help others. And of course, we want a lot of listeners because we want to help a lot of people. But with your, connections and help and our friendship and our relationship that all three of us have, we really think this is a great venture, and it's a good little trio to kind of just, like I said, help people. And what we talked about on our podcast last month, or this month, 2 weeks ago, about just being able to use media as an outlet to reach more people and to serve more people. And, it's not about the numbers. It is when it comes to us wanting to serve people, but it's not about that. It's about, and they say it's not about what you're doing. It's how you feel about what you're doing that makes a difference. So if we feel something about if we feel something positive about what we're doing, that's making a difference, but yet we don't have that many listeners, it doesn't matter. We could have one listener, but, just vibrating that energy into the universe, and I'm getting all spiritual on you guys, but it does send a message to people. And I think all three of us are very good people, and we're very selfless. We show a lot of that, in our work. So we're excited, and we can't wait for iGolf Network and iGolf Sports Network. We just want to get it going. And like I said last time as well, a lot of ideas are flowing. A lot of ideas are flowing in my head, and you got to act on them. And I told you I would write them down and let you know. And so, that's my feedback.
Perfect. And John, we've talked a little bit more at length about this, you and I, and I haven't really said a lot on the show as of yet, and this is really, I've briefly mentioned it a couple times in the past, but not really said a lot, and I'm going to continue that for the next little while, just until things are completely ready. But, one of the things that I want to do, and Angel really touched upon this, and this is really what I've done with my programs, and I know you guys are doing with your program now, is really to be able to reach out and help other people. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed doing is helping other people. That's what I get the most satisfaction from. It's not about the accolades, and that's why I very, very seldomly on the show, unless it's a point of reference, do I really ever talk about myself on the shows. It's really about my guests, and it's about the others that are on here. And iGolf Sports Network is just a continuation of what I've already been doing on a much bigger platform. And, helping you guys at this stage is important to me, because I think what it is that you're projecting through your Golf Swing RX podcast is something that I think is important, because, again, one of the criticisms I have of the golf industry is we've spent a lot of time on technology and things like that to improve the golf game, but yet a lot of the numbers still aren't changing. People are, have left the game that aren't coming back through frustration. The stats don't lie. And, I want to be able to give more information, but the right kind of information. And what you guys are doing falls into that wheelhouse as one more thing that can be offered, through these various networks. And that was one of the reasons why, we've talked about this, you and I, and then now have talked about it more with Angel. But just very quickly as we wrap up, John, any comments or things that you want to say about it as well?
Yes, I remember when you first told me about this, because we were talking, this was back in the fall, and I told you, I said, Ted, every day, I say affirmations every day. I pray every morning, and one of my affirmations is I pray for Golf Talk Live, and I pray for you in this program. And you told me, well, I want you to add iGolf Sports Network to that, to your affirmations that you say every day. And I said, well, what is that? And that's when you told me about it. And I believe, I'm a big believer. I've I've turned my life over to the Lord, and I've turned the show over to the Lord, and I've turned, I pray for Angel, and I pray for you as well. And the best way to really help people is to follow His lead, because He will lead you to where the people that need to be helped. And that's what I hope that this program will do. I hope that when we get in front of the camera, and it'll be different than it is right now. When we're in front of the camera, that we can be professional, that we can be stewards of the gifts that God has given us, and the opportunity. I want to thank you, Ted, because this is an opportunity, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I know Angel is as well. We're both very excited and can't wait to get started.
Well, thank you. As am I. And, this is something, as I said, that I'm going to unpack. It's going to seem slow, but it's actually going to come a lot quicker than what we all realize. But, this is something that really my time doing the Women of Golf and Golf Talk Live has really sort of led up to. And now adding your podcast into the mix, if you will, I think is going to be very, very helpful for a lot of our listeners out there and ultimately viewers as we transition to that next level. I really want to thank both of you for coming on tonight. I'm looking forward to continuing this relationship, beginning next month, as I said. We'll obviously talk about that more as the days go by, but taking that next level. But one thing I want to do before we run out of time is, and John, if you want to go ahead, or Angel, either one, where can the folks tune into Golf Swing RX podcast? Where can they go now if they want to listen to episodes that have already been created and tune into future episodes? Where do they go?
Yeah, so we're on a lot of different platforms. We are on iTunes. We are on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, like you name it, we're on it. So iPhone, Android, you can find us on and listen to us on all those platforms. You can also go to my website. I have in the tabs in the menu section the Golf Swing RX podcast. You just click that and it will take you to our podcast, which is really cool. And then also, if you kind of get lost in the mix, you can find me at on Instagram at Optimal PT and Wellness, one word, obviously, no underscores or anything. And I always put all of my podcasts up there, and you can tune into whatever episode that you would like to listen to. So yeah, very accessible, very easy to find us, and just type in Golf Swing RX podcast, the prescription for your game, and 4 is, spelled FORE. So I'm sure you guys get that, but
yep,
that's
yeah, we sure do. We got it. Well, listen, John and Angel, thank you very much again for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's been interesting to hear a little bit more about your journey and share that with my audience. And I hope that the folks will go out. You can even just Google Golf Swing RX podcast, and that will come up and take you to the appropriate links that you can listen on a multitude of social media platforms. So they're all over the internet. You can find them there, and it's a great program. And thank you guys again for having me a couple of weeks ago. I appreciate it, and I look forward to coming on again sometime in the future. And as I mentioned to the listeners a moment ago, you guys are going to be coming back once a month, beginning next month, for a special segment here on Golf Talk Live, where we're going to talk about some of the things that you're going to be talking about on your podcast, just as sort of as a preamble, if you will, to what's going to happen next year on the iGolf Sports Network. So I hope everybody will tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about some interesting things that you guys are going to share. But on that note, Angel and John, thank you again for coming on the show. I appreciate always having you guys as guests, and have a great weekend, and God bless to both of you.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Angel.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, that was my special guest, hosts of the Golf Swing RX podcast, the prescription for your game, PGA instructor John Decker and Dr. Angelica Napolitano, a.k.a. the Golf Doc. Again, you can find them where all great podcasts are heard. literally all over the internet. So make sure you check them out. And they're, of course, both on Facebook, so you can check them under their names on Facebook as well and connect with them through there. I want to thank everybody once again for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live, and a special thanks to Chuck Evans and Clint Wright, my two panelists on the Coach's Corner panel earlier this evening. Thanks, guys, for always doing a great job. And thank you for the listeners for faithfully tuning in each and every week. And as I said, over the next several months, I'll be unpacking a little bit more about the iGolf Sports Network. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this and really love the format that I'm putting together for that. And that is going to be taking place hopefully early spring, but sometime between March and May of 2020. So I will be updating you as we go along through not only the show here, but also all of my social media links, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and so forth. So keep an eye out for that. That's the iGolf Sports Network. Thank you, everybody. God bless. Have a great week, and I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks for listening to this evening's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. Remember to tune in each week at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. If you can't join us live, check out the on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts, or listen on any of the following social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. To get updates on future shows and upcoming guests, be sure to visit the show's Facebook page, Golf Talk Live Blog. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. Remember to join me live each week for another great broadcast of Golf Talk Live. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.